Hi everyone, I'm Glenda with SureFit Designs, and I know lots and lots of you already know me as Glenda the Good Stitch. I may be 15 days late, but I'm going to wish each and every one of you a very, very happy new year. To all of our existing customers and anybody that's new with us today, I welcome all of you. Today's chat is called, When is a YOKE not related to an egg? And you know, Wes came up with the name for this, and it was kind of cute as we laughed about it, but in the English language, we have all kinds of words that are pronounced the same way, they're spelled differently, and they mean something totally different. And so I was told that the English language is one of the most difficult languages to learn as a second language, and this is one of the reasons why. A YOLK is the yellow center of an egg, and a YOKE is related to a garment. So it was just a little bit of a play on words, and I hope you all had a little bit of a chuckle about that. You know, last year we took a theme of being an inspirational year, and this year we decided that our new theme would be Embrace the Program. And what do I mean by that? Well, SureFit Designs offers you a program of fitting, getting patterns to fit your unique body shape and size, and then being able to sew garments that are suitable to your lifestyle. And when you embrace this program, you are going to end up with successful results of garments that fit you and, of course, suitable to your lifestyle. And one of the things that we do is provide you endless resources of videos, design and sew alongs, broadcasts, leaflets, fashion leaflets, along with us, your distributors, who are here to help all the time. And lots of you have taken advantage of our help. So today, one of the things that we're going to do is a little exercise towards the end of this, and it is on designing yokes. And one of the things, if you read the newsletters and as well as looked at the information page in my website, I said, if you'd like to participate, please get yourself ready by printing out 2 half-scale bodices. One is the bodice front, and the other that I asked you to print out is the bodice back with the shoulder dart. Now, if you printed out the one without the shoulder dart, you can still do the exercise. You just won't be doing the part where you remove the dart. And it's an important part of the exercise. You know, we do these chats throughout the year, and one of the things last year is I encouraged you to start participating in the actual chat, and so we started using these half-scale bodices. Now, if you don't have this printed out already, in the Show More notes, there's a link to go get them, and I think Kelly is also putting up a link on going to free stuff so that you can get these printed out. Now, the reason that I want you to participate is because when you actually do this, or anything, any little exercise, it gets embedded in the gray matter, and it'll just help you remember it that much better. And I have to tell you a funny little story. There was a woman who came to one of my private one-on-one workshops, and it got to the designing section, and I handed her a bodice, and it had lines all over it, and I said, do you know how to move a dart around? She said, oh yes, I've seen it done. And I said, here, please show me how to move the dart around. And she went, oh, well, I've seen it done, but I've never really done it. So we went through the lesson, and you know, the whole point of that little exchange there was because when you actually physically do something, even if it's on a pattern that's smaller than your full-scale pattern, it is going to get embedded in your memory, so that once you've done it and you go, oh, that was easy to do, then when you take out your full-scale pattern, you're going to go, oh, I remember how to do that, and it was easy to do. So I hope you do participate with me this afternoon. But if you don't have these printed and ready to go, remember you can always come back and watch this in YouTube, because these chats are free and you can come back and participate. But again, please make sure that you you do it, because these half-scale patterns are free and you will learn that much more. Okay, and last year I started saying to you, if you have ideas for these chats, please make sure you email them to me. And I read every single email that comes into my address, and we're going to put that address up on the board for you. It is info@surefitdesigns.com. And I thank all of you last year who did give me excellent suggestions. In fact, this chat today is an outcropping of one of those suggestions. A lady emailed and said that she sure did not like having to put a dart in her back bodice at the shoulder line. And she said, what else can I do with it? And I said, well, one of the things is to put it into a yoke and no one will ever see it. So I really do read your suggestions. Please do send them to me. And you'll never know. It might become the essence of a chat or a broadcast. And I do appreciate hearing from you. So the address again was info@surefitdesigns.com. Now, one of the things throughout these chats is that you obviously have an opportunity to ask your questions in the chat window. And we've got Kelly, my office assistant, and I do believe the international distributors are with us today to help answer questions throughout the chat. But if there are any questions left at the end that haven't been answered, please make sure you put the capital letter Q in front of your question so that we all can see that it is an actual question rather than just a comment. And at the end, if your question hasn't been answered, you might want to enter it in the chat window again so that I don't have a lot of scrolling to do to go backward to find your question. But I will be answering at the end of the chat. Now, I do have a question for you. And your question today is, what is the definition of a YOKE? Okay, what is the definition of a yoke in relationship to our garments? I'm going to give you a few minutes to write your answers in the chat window, and then I'll come back and take a look at your answers. And while you're putting your answer in the chat window, I always go over what's new. And you know, the last time we did a chat was in October last year. That seems like years ago, but at that point in time, since then, we've had a lot of things happen that are new. SureFit Designs is always producing new resources, again, for your benefit. And so in the Academy, there are now 2 new free courses. For those of you who are new, and when I talk about the Academy, I mean surefitacademy.com, the USA website. And there we have our streaming video for all of our physical DVD tutorials. We also have our broadcasts. Last year we did a dress, pant, and shirt broadcast. And we have 6 free courses as well as all of our design and sew-alongs. And the 2 new free courses that are in there right now, one is on common hip shapes, the straight, the heart, and the diamond-shaped hip person. And I show you in those videos how the pant pattern can be so flexible to accommodate the actual shape and dimensions of your hips. And the second new video that's up there, or video series I should say, is called What I Didn't Know But Wish I Had. And you just, what did she just say? Well, remember a little bit earlier I said I read all of the input from you consumers suggesting videos for us. Well, one of the suggestions came in from one of our dear customers in Arkansas. Her name is Pat, and she sent me a list of about 12 different things that she'd like to see in-depth information on. But one of them said, gosh, Glenda, I know how to draw off my blueprint, but there are sure some things that I would like to have known at the beginning that I already know now, but they'd have been really helpful when I was starting off. So I emailed her back and I said, Pat, tell me a few of those things that would have been helpful for you. Because you have to remember, everybody, I've been doing this for so many years that it comes second nature to me. As in anything that you learn how to do, the more you repeat it, the more you think everybody else knows exactly what to do as well. So Pat came back to me with a list of ideas, and I condensed it into 10 different topics. So this new video series is called What I Didn't Know But Wish I Had, and it's all up in the Academy for you. And these videos right now actually are in the process of being uploaded to YouTube, and we're putting up one a week. So because you are in the inner circle, you get to go and watch them now in the Academy. And the Hip Shapes one is just in the process of going into YouTube. Beginning of February is when the What I Didn't Know But Wish I Had is going to start going into YouTube. So as I say, you've got a lead on this, and even those of you who already have your blueprint drawn, I'm going to encourage you to go into the Academy and watch them, because your blueprint may be drawn, but you never know. There might be a tip in there that you'll go, oh, the next time I draw one of my patterns, I'm going to remember that tip. So it's called What I Didn't Know But Wish I Had. Then another new thing that's happened since October is we started off the year with a brand new fashion leaflet. Again, inspiration for you to sew. It's called the Flared Dress. And it was developed by our South African distributor, Elsa B. Hearn. And all the distributors have this fashion leaflet in their websites. You just go to shop and then to digital sewing patterns. And I believe we're putting up a graphic of this leaflet right now. Elsa B. designed the maxi dress, and I made the shorter day length version. So you have both options, and you can change the sleeve style, do whatever you want. But as I said, that leaflet is brand new, and it is in all of the distributors' websites. Now, a lot of you also know that Elsa B. has been doing many design and sew-alongs. She has a goal of doing a brand new design and sew-along once a month, which I think is really admirable. So the last one that she just put up is called the Versatile Drape Top. And again, we're putting up a visual of it. I just love her black top with the orange cami underneath. And this is my version. I've just finished making this. I've done it in grays and whites. And I've done a combination of gray fabric. This is a knit. This is a French terry. And my cami underneath is a terry. And then this, is not a terry. It's a knit. And then the drape on the top is a woven fabric. And where you're going to find this design and sew along is in Elsa B's Academy, which has a little bit different address than mine. It is SureFitAcademySA.com. The SA is for South Africa. And as I was making this and going through her video lessons, which are excellent, I was thinking as I was putting this presentation together, you know the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Well, this old dog learned 2 new tricks from Elsa B's design and sew along. And it was how to do the neckline finishes. So the white cami has a knit finish that's done on the serger, and then the woven fabric drape that I've got in the front has a totally different type of edge finish. So thank you very much for that, Elsa B. They were great to learn this, and they worked beautifully. And again, that's found in Elsa B's Academy, SureFit Academy SA. For those of you who weren't able to join us in our last October chat, there I announced a brand new item that we brought into SureFit Designs. We manufactured it, and it is called the Curved T-Square. And again, we're putting up a graphic of it right now. It's got a perfect semicircle on the top, which is why I added the word curved T-square. And then here are 2 perfect 90-degree angles, which are absolutely essential in a lot of our pattern work. And as I do the lesson today, I'm going to be showing you how to use this very functionally. It also is designed with all of our international customers in mind, as well as our US customers, because it has inch designations on it from 1 to 6 inches, and on this side it's 1 to 15 centimeters. So it's for both imperial and our metric customers. If you don't already have one, I know you're really going to appreciate using the curved T-square. And the fourth thing that is in my What's New category, believe it or not, SureFit Designs is going into our 40th anniversary. We started in 1982 as an analog company, and my husband and I, literally traveled throughout the world bringing SureFit Designs to all of our audiences. Well, about 15 years ago, we digitized all of SureFit Designs, and now we let YouTube do the traveling for us. Excuse me. And it's really hard to imagine that we are going into our 40th anniversary. The actual anniversary date of our corporation, some of you know our corporate name is Renita Corporation, and SureFit Designs is the product name. Well, the anniversary date is February the 28th, but we are going to celebrate all month long. So what I want you to do right now, I'm sure a lot of you have your phones with you. I want you to take your phone and I want you to go to the calendar and I want you to put in two very important dates, because in February we are going to do two broadcasts or two chats right here, same time, same station. We're going to be on YouTube. It'll just simply be a different YouTube link. And the first one is on February the 5th here, 11 o'clock. We're in Idaho. That's 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern in the United States. Please check your country and your city or state, wherever you are. Go into Google and do a time zone equivalent so that you will have the exact starting time for our chat on February the 5th. It's called the Fun Party Chat. It's our kickoff party, and we're going to have games and sweepstakes. We're going to have digital prizes. We're going to have physical prizes, and we're going to do a really fun thing on February the 5th. Then on February the 19th, this is the second date to put in your phone, is I am going to interview a designer. I'm not going to tell you who it is. I know you're all going to really, really enjoy the interview. So that's February the 19th. And then throughout the entire month, there's going to be all kinds of fun party games to be played. So come back in February and participate in the chat. Okay, now, those of you who have participated in the broadcasts and our chats previously know that once a month, or typically once a month, we usually have some kind of a promotion or a sale. And so this month, what it is 20% off all of our Academy courses. So in the USA Academy, I have the streaming video for our physical DVDs, we have our broadcasts, and we have our design and sew-alongs. Every single item is 20% off. Also in the USA Academy, we have already bundled courses where I've already given you a discount. And so with those, there's an additional discount. And then in South Africa, in Elsabee's Academy, she is also offering 20% off. Now, between Elsabee and myself, I counted, we have over 30 design and sew-alongs. So I'm really, really proud of that. There's so many different garment styles to choose from. And when I said earlier to embrace the program, because you can end up with clothing that fit your lifestyle and that are suited to you, with over 30 design and sew-alongs, I know you're going to find something that is just perfect for your wardrobe. And it helps you do what I call bridge the gap, going from your finished body blueprint to actually doing a design and feeling confident in it. And those of you who have watched my design and sew-alongs know how detailed I am. I take you step by step through the entire process, and so does Elsabee. So we are available and here for you. Now, the discount code that you are going to use is this. For individual courses that are not already discounted, you're going to use the discount code SAL20, all right? SAL20. And for the bundles in the United States in the United States Academy, you're going to use the discount code BUN5. Now, Kelly is putting those codes up in the chat window, and I believe that we put them up on the screen for you as well. This promotion is good from now through till Monday midnight in the USA. And let me just tell you how the academies work. The academies do not have what we call a robust shopping cart. So when you think about our general stores where you go and get your kits and vellum and tape and whatever else, you put all the items that you want to in your shopping cart, and then you do one checkout, hit the pay button, and you check out. In the academies, the software that we use does not provide for multiple item checkout. So you need to put your items in one at a time. And then you can go back, you put them in one at a time, you check out, and then you go back and put your next course in. Because if you put in one course and then pull in the second course, it's going to bump the first course out of there. And now, when you are checking out, I need to ask you all a very, very big favor. Please do not hit that pay button before you enter the discount code. And we're showing you a screen right now that has a big arrow pointing to a phrase that says, have a coupon code with a question mark. You absolutely must click that pink, fuchsia, red sentence, whatever it is there, and then put in the code SAL20 or BUN5. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to issue any refunds for anybody who forgets to put their code in. And the reason is we have this promotion going literally all over the world, and there's going to be a lot of people buying courses, and it really is your responsibility to get that discount code in there. So it's SAL, SAL20, or BUN5, B-U-N. Okay, and that now brings me up to the lesson. And before I get started in the lesson, I need to see what you all put down there for the answers to what is an SALK. Okay, I'm sorry. We have a little issue going on in the background here, and I have a little itch in my nose. Wes, I'm just going to ask you, there's Kleenexes over there on the table. Could you please bring me one? And the question that I asked you was, thank you, what is the definition of a yoke? And so let's just see here what I've got for definitions. Okay, here's one. I don't know that that's really a question or the answer. Let's see, where do I go back up to here to find your answers? What's the definition of a yoke? Okay, here's a comment. I've always avoided yokes. They seem hard to do, and I would be glad to know their function. Okay, well, I'm going to show you today how easy they are to do, and functionality is both for fit and for fashion. Let's see here. Okay, here's an answer. A piece of fabric placed on the shoulder of a garment to create a special effect on the garment. That's good, Paula, thank you. From Leslie Jones, yoke is a separate shoulder piece or upper back part to be sewn to the main bodice. Absolutely. Leafy Tree said, yoke, separate upper, front, or back bodice that can be either a fitting line, dart replacement, or design line. Excellent, Leafy Tree. And Laura E. Jones, a yoke is a separate piece of fabric that covers the shoulders and the upper, front, and or back that can be used for fit and design. And here's another one. Lynn Williams, a yoke is a part of a garment that fits over the shoulders that the front and the back hang from. So those are all absolutely excellent definitions of a yoke. And so when I was putting this whole chat together, I went to Wikipedia and I asked the question, what's the definition of a yoke? And here's what Wikipedia said. A part of a garment that fits over the shoulders and to which a main part of the garment is attached, typically in gathers or pleats. So you all were correct, Wikipedia is correct, but I'm going to show you an extension of that as well. So let's now get up and take a look at some of the yokes I have on display. And first of all, I should say, now that I'm standing, you can see Elsabee's total versatile drape top design and sew along. So it was really, again, a fun, easy project to make. Okay, back to yokes. We're going to be looking at this one that I did out of the shirt kit. And up here, you're going to see a crinkled fabric right there, and then a solid fabric hanging down beneath it. Now, this seam line right there is called the yoke seam, and then hanging below it is the body of the garment, and I do have a big pleat going into the base of the yoke. And this pleat is 4 inches wide. Wes actually calls this my cow fabric. And when I bought it, I didn't exactly know what I was going to do with it, but the shop had a coordinating fabric. So it was this pre-crinkled fabric, and so because it was all pre-crinkled and it just kind of mushed back together, all I did was my waist measurement, and I put an elastic casing in there and put elastic at the top. And so that crinkled fabric is what I've put up here at the top for the yoke. All right, let's move over to the blouse on this mannequin. And this blouse is called the long-tailed big shirt. And this is one of the design and sew-alongs that's in the USA Academy, where I show you the complete placket application, sewing on the collar stand, and putting on the collar. It's, of course, one of the design and sew-alongs that is on sale at 20% off. Now, let's take a look at the back of it. This fabric is a cotton herringbone shirting fabric. And I know we can't get up real close on the camera here, but it's like a herringbone pattern right there. And so the straight of grain, of course, is parallel to the selvage, which is making the design run up and down. But what I did on the yoke was I did it on the bias, and so now the herringbone pattern is running this way. And again, a little difficult to see because of it being a solid color. This also has the base of it with a full pleat going up and joined into the yoke seam. And this pleat is 2 inches wide. And here's another design and sew along that's found in the USA Academy. It's the nautical flared top done from the dress kit. I should say this is done from the shirt kit, and this one's done from the dress kit. And the contrasting fabric really establishes the dividing line from the yoke and the body of the garment. And I've also put the contrasting yoke on the top of the sleeve. And I've done some yokes. Typically, on a man's shirt, you will see a yoke here as well. This is one of Wes's Hawaiian shirts, and the yoke travels from the back over the shoulder to the front. And this one is a dress, more of a dressy shirt done in just a striped fabric. Again, you can see the yoke wrapping over the shoulder, and here's the yoke on the back. And the stripe goes this way, crosswise and lengthwise at the body of the shirt. Now, Wikipedia and most of your answers all said that this was a piece on the shoulder. Well, we also use the same concept of yoke on the back of our jeans. So you can see that I've put this yoke right here on these cropped leg jeans that I did. Now, one of the things I'm going to be teaching you is about the back shoulder dart and how to remove it and to put it into the yoke. And here I had a back fitting dart, which when I teach you how to move the yoke, the dart away and put it into the, in the case of the shoulder, it'll be the dart is going to go into the armhole. Here, the dart got closed up and moved into the side seam. But I think it will all make sense when I show you on the demonstration how to do that. And then another shirt, a more casual shirt that I did for Wes, is a plaid shirt. Now, typically, when you're doing a yoke in a plaid shirt, you often see the plaid put on the 45-degree bias angle. In this, we just came up and matched the stripes absolutely so perfectly that you can barely even see that there's a seam there. But there is the shoulder yoke seam right there. Okay, so now let's go over to the demonstration board and take a look at the two visuals that I have up here. Obviously, this is the bodice front, and there's the bodice front or back with the back shoulder dart. Okay, so now we're going to start taking a look up here at the top. A yoke can be pretty much any depth and any shape. And so one that you might want to do on a traditional shoulder yoke would be to take it down about 1.5 to 2 inches below the shoulder line. Whenever you make a yoke cutting line, you must also add X's, which will become your matching notches. You cut on that line, separate the pieces apart, add tracing vellum, add your 5/8 inch seam allowance, and then extend your matching notch out. Again, we will be doing that as we go on. Another yoke position can be much lower down. Now I want you to see what I'm doing with the curved T-square. I'm lining up those sections of the curved top where I've got my perfect 90-degree angle, and then I'm extending the yoke line coming straight out like this. Again, you want to make sure that you don't have anything other than a 90-degree angle there. Of course, you would need X's for matching notches. Now, another one, in the newsletters that I sent out, if you took a look at the graphic that I pulled together, there was a yoke on one of the blouses that was really, really pretty that had a very long diagonal line here, and the yoke piece was all pleated and then sewn back in to the body of the blouse. But now we're going to take a look at this blouse, and we're putting up a graphic for you to see this a little bit closer. This maroon colored top, it's a cold shouldered style, and you'll notice that there's like lace, a lace yoke on the top in the same color, and then the body of it is just solid. And then she's got this ruffle or flounce that's going around the entire front on the sleeve, and it likely continues around the back. Well, I'm going to show you real quickly how to do that particular design. So when we take a look at the armhole area, I'm going to just guess that the yoke is starting somewhere right around this single notch on the armhole. And then we're going to do a curved line coming in towards the center front. And as I do with many of my initial designs, I pencil it in first of all. So I'm just going to take the designing stylus, I'm going to start at that single notch in the front armhole, and I'm going to pencil it over and get a nice curve with the designing stylus. And then I know that I need to meet up with that curve, and I'm going to take the curved T-square, again, ensuring that I have a perfect 90-degree angle here. and I'm going to come across for about an inch, inch and a half. I'll come back and do this in black as well. And this establishes my interpretation of the curve that's in the front there. Now, we needed that 90-degree angle here because when you cut this on the fold, you want the continuation of this initial curve to flatten out and continue straight across and then curve back down to the other armhole, all right? So it's very important that you get 90 there. And then you would put your X's for your matching notches, cut it apart, add your seam allowances, and then extend your matching notches down. Now, to do the back on this, it would likely be something similar. So you'd start at the double notch on the back armhole, take the curvature going around, a pleasing curve, take your T-square and square it off to center back. And then you might be asking, what about the sleeve detail? So I've put up a little illustration of the sleeve here, and because I've started this whole yoke treatment at the single notch in the front and the double notch in the back, I did the same thing on the sleeve. So there's the single notch, there's the double notch, and I just took the designing stylus and drew a line going from single to double notch, and that whole portion of the cap would then be removed, all right? And now you've got to add this flare or flounce detail, if you want to, of course. And even though the lesson isn't on doing flares and flounces, I'm guessing that some of you might want to know how to do that flounce. And so what you would do is measure, because you've got to get the stitching line length from the front, the two sleeves, and around the back. So you would start measuring at the underarm to center front, pick that up at the underarm on center back, so that's one distance there, and then pick it up on the sleeve like this, and then double your distance. So that's going to give you the actual stitching line to go all around. And then you say, how deep would you like that flounce to be? And I just assumed about 2 to 2 1/4 inches. So let's take a quick look here, and I made this little visual for you so it would be a little bit easier to understand. So let's just say that this is the entire length of the flounce required, and that you want your flounce to be about 2 1/4 inches wide. So I added another 1/4 inch for my seam allowance here. And then every 2 inches, I drew a line coming straight up and cut on that line and made pivot points all the way around. So all you do now is flare this open, but you still maintained the same stitching line, okay? And so that's how you create the flounce, and then that would be sewn into the yoke seam. So now let's take a look at the back bodice. Here we've got the shoulder dart. So now I'm going to show you how to remove the shoulder dart. We will be cutting it out of there, but before I do, I need to establish my yoke line. So again, I'm going to take the curved T-square. I'm going to ensure a perfect 90-degree angle at center back. And I'm going to come across like this and make my yoke line. Now, the yoke line, in order to remove the dart, you don't want to have this yoke line too high up. You've got to go below the dart tip, and it doesn't matter whether it's a 1/2 inch or an inch. I've come about an inch below that dart tip. And then before I start cutting, I must make my matching notches. Now, I've already made one cut on here, and I don't want my black marking pen to go through to my white demonstration wall, so I'm just going to do this in red pencil. But what I'm doing now is I'm extending and creating the designer dart from that shoulder dart, like this, okay? I hope some of you can see that. I just did that in red. Now what I'm going to do is and this one is already pre-cut, so now I'm going to cut across on this shoulder piece right here. I'm only going to go that far because this is likely going to fall apart. Now you would cut the rest of that out and then pivot the shoulder dart closed. So now it looks like this. The shoulder dart has completely gone into the armhole area. And now you say, I don't want to have a dart coming out of my armhole. That's true, you don't. So you're going to continue cutting along here, and you're going to separate out your yoke. You know what I'm going to do is put a piece of tape on this. So mind you, it's pinned to the board. It likely isn't going anywhere. But what I want to do now is just cut across there, and then you would separate the two pieces away from one another, back it with tracing vellum, add your 5/8" seam allowance, and extend your matching notches out. And what has happened here is that your shoulder dart has been moved into the armhole, but it's going to be sewn as a seam. So it means that you still have the shaping aiming towards your protruding shoulder bone. So if you're rounded backed and if you have very dominant protruding shoulder bones, you're always going to get a superior fit when you have a shoulder dart. But if you don't want it to be totally visible, then make yourself a yoke and put it into the seam line, and nobody will ever know that you've got a shoulder dart there. Alrighty, are you ready to sit down? And I guess you're seated, aren't you? And I am going to sit down, and we're going to go ahead and do the exercise. So, first of all, let's just start. Take your bodice front, half scale bodice. Let me just kind of move that out of the way and tuck that over there. Alrighty. Now, where I'm going to reference you in your instruction book, the dress kit instruction book, okay? Dress kit instruction book is you're going to go to page 20, and that's on creating matching notches and yoke designing. And you're going to see a lot of different yoke designs down there. And there's a blouse right here that has the traditional over-the-shoulder yoke. You will also find the complete drawing directions and sewing steps for that particular blouse. It's got the bow tie at the front, and it's got the shoulder yoke going over. And that is what I'm going to be taking you through right now. So in those directions, it says to drop the front shoulder about 2 inches. But because I'm working on a half scale pattern, I'm going to drop it 1 inch. So on your bodice, measure down 1 inch and make a yoke cutting line like that. Then add your matching notches. Alrighty? Now I'll just set that aside for the moment, and we're going to take a look at the back. So the back with the shoulder dart, you want to get that half scale pattern now, and we're going to come down here about 1/2 inch below the tip of the dart, and I'm using this T-square to make sure I've got a perfect 90-degree angle there, and make my X's for my matching notches. Now I need to establish the designer dart, so I'm just drawing the extension of the shoulder dart like this, and there I have the designer dart that was the initiation. When you opened up your pattern at the back and added your shoulder dart, that was the place where you started off. Excuse me. Now, let me get some tape ready here, and we're going to do a little bit of cutting. So I'm going to cut all the way across. On the demonstration board, I did it only part way, but you can cut all the way across like this, and then cut the designer's dart for the shoulder line out. I feel like I'm cutting crooked here. All right, and remove this little piece that's sticking to my board here. Excuse me, there we go. Okay, so the dart's gone away. Now what you do is take the shoulder line and close it up like this, tape it closed, and now, I hope you've got some little scraps of vellum there. You are going to put your tracing vellum underneath on both of them. And now use your designing stylus. You know, this is a half-scale pattern, and so I should be doing a half-scale seam allowance, but it's just easier for me to use my designing stylus and put on a full 5/8. So I'm going to put the full 5/8 seam allowance on here. I'm going to extend my X to be my matching notch. So there's the lower half of the body finished, and then we'll go on to the top portion of the yoke and extend the X down to become the matching notch like this. So now, when you sew this together, let's just pretend that we've matched our seam allowances and it goes together. Now you end up with a perfect match, and because when you start pulling this into the seam, you can see that how it's going to shape for your shoulder bone. So when you need the dart back there, yeah, you should have it. You'll get a superior fit, but you can always put it into a yoke like this, and no one will ever know. Now, to make it a complete over-the-shoulder yoke, let's just take the back yoke, and we're going to come to our front. And I'm now taking, you know what, I'm going to cut this shoulder line off like this. And now I can match these two together. So I'm taking the back yoke, and there's the neckline on the back and the neckline on the front, and I'm going to match these two together like this, and then, so that takes that back yoke and pulls it over your shoulder towards the front, and then of course you cut on your yoke front line and do the same thing. Separate it out, add your seam allowances, and extend your matching notches. So I hope you enjoyed this little exercise, because as I said at the beginning, when you actually do this in a half-scale pattern, you're going to realize that it takes all the fear out of designing, so that when you go to do it on your full-scale body blueprint, you're going to go, oh, I know how to do that, and it'll just feel like second nature to you. So now, there's one more thing that I want to talk about, and in relationship to yokes. I've been showing you throughout this whole lesson to cut your yoke away from the main body of the garment and add your seam allowances, and then extend your matching notches, and then you sew it back together. Well, I'm going to show you a circumstance where I would not recommend doing that, and it's on this kind of a fancy yoke. So let's take a look at this. Let's say that you wanted a little bit of, you know, the curvatures and scallops. You often see this in Western style of clothing. And to draw these scallops, I just used this semicircle that was on the end of the curved T-square. And if you followed what I've just been teaching you, which is to make matching notches, cut it apart, add your seam allowances, when you go to sew that back together, you're going to be trying to sew together concave to convex curves. And I can assure you that that will be very difficult to do, getting into these points and making them look nice and crisp. So in a circumstance like this, what I would recommend you do is leave the body of the blouse or shirt as one whole unit. Don't cut it apart. Then create a separate pattern piece for just your yoke. Finish whatever you want to do on it. Put some perhaps stabilizer on it, or you could use some little pieces of stitch witchery and then take it and bond it onto the entire back, so that now you've got 2 layers up here instead of just the one. And then use like a satin zigzag stitch to actually sew this and keep it nice and neat attached to the whole body of the garment. And that is a very, very legitimate way to add a yoke detail when you don't want to be fussing with those seam allowances. Now, in your shirt book on page, let me get to it, I've got it marked here, on page 18, this is one that I did for the gents that love SureFit Designs. Is here's the whole shoulder yoke that goes in a traditional dress shirt, and there's some styles of more curvy Western styles of yokes that could go in the back of a shirt or could go in the front of the shirt as well. But that's all found in your shirt kit, shirt instruction book. Okay, that kind of takes me to the end of the actual lesson on doing yokes. And as I said before, if you have questions, please make sure you put a capital letter Q in front of the question. And then when I get to that part, which I will in just a few moments, I'll be answering your questions. But before I do, for those of you who came in a few minutes late, I just want to remind you of the promotion that's going on this weekend, today through Monday midnight, which is all of our design and sew-alongs in both the USA Academy and Elsabee's Academy are 20% off when you use the coupon code SAL20. Now, I have to tell you an interesting phone call I got not that long ago, and it was a woman in New York State who called and she said, actually she emailed me and she said, Glenda, I would sure love to have a sewing buddy. She said, can you give me any names of people in my state or anywhere else for that matter? With technology, we don't even need to be in the same state to be a sewing buddy. And first of all, I couldn't do it because that violated privacy of your name and email address. But secondly, I thought, let me be your sewing buddy. That's what SureFit Designs is all about. Look at both Elsabee and I. We have all kinds of design and sew-alongs for you. We are your sewing buddy. And we all invite you to email us when you have issues. I've dealt with a lot of customers. I know all of our distributors have. And that's one of the resources that we provide is us. So take advantage of us because there's just so much out there that in terms of our resources that we've put together and all for your sewing success. So it's time to invest in a few design and sew-alongs to suit your lifestyle. And remember, the discount code is done at midnight on Monday night, SAL20. And if you're getting an already discounted bundle, it's BUN5. All right, so it is time to take a look at some of your questions here. And let me just scroll back. Let me just see here. Somebody just told me to close my rotary cutter because it's making her cringe. I know. Did I not do that? There you go. There was a woman who came to a private retreat with me, and man, she got on me all the time because I didn't close my rotary cutter. Okay, Kathleen Hammond, she says, what about a sleeveless shirt? Where to put the facing seams and why? The facing seams. Well, I'm not exactly sure if this question is related to doing a yoke, Kathleen, but you would just do the yoke in the same manner if you're putting the yoke on the front and the back of a sleeveless garment, and then you have to decide how you're going to finish that sleeveless armhole. Is it going to be with just a binding, or is it going to be with a full-fledged facing? And so you have those options. And everybody, please, I'm trying to find your questions here, but please put the capital letter Q in front of them if you have questions on yokes. Okay, Lynn Williams asks, what about gathering the back piece or pleats? Do you need to add extra width to the back? Absolutely, Lynn, you absolutely do. In both the examples that I showed you, the black and white one with the yoke and this one right here, whenever you add a center back anything, or if you want gathers across the center back, you have to cut and spread your pattern open to allow for that. So in my black and white one, the yoke was, the pleat was 4 inches wide, which meant that I had to cut and spread the back open 8 inches because it's always double the width of the finished pleat. And in this one, it's 2 inches wide, so I had to cut and spread it open 4 inches. And that pleat could have been sewn into gathers if you wanted to do that. Let's see here. Uncluttered Creative asked, will you be making the colored pencils available again for purchase through your website? And I'm very sorry, I will not be bringing them in again. I know how great they are and were, but unfortunately they come in from overseas, and like so many other things, costs have escalated, delivery times have slowed down, and you don't know when you're going to be getting any shipments. So I have stopped carrying those colored pencils. I know that our international distributors still carry them, I believe, and because they're actually available in those countries, those colored pencils just are not available here in the United States. Okay, Laura E. Jones asks, how do you ensure a front and back yoke line up correctly if you want them to be continuous around the garment, even when looking from a side view? Well, I think that's what I just showed you when I took the, where did I put it here? This right here is the example of where it's continuous going from the back to the front. So you have to work with each piece individually. And if you didn't participate in this little exercise, I encourage you to do that, Laura. And I hope that I'm answering your question the way that you intended it. If not, please ask it again, because this process that I just taught you lines your yokes up correctly. Melissa Smith asks, can a shoulder dart be moved to a place like maybe the waist dart to create a one-piece back with no center seam or yoke? If yes, how would you do that? Well, yes, you can do that. You'd have to get the design line for that back shoulder dart meeting up with the design point for the waist dart. And then you just take that fullness from the back shoulder dart and let it flare open in the waist dart. I still don't think it's going to give you quite as good a fit as putting it into a yoke seam, but you could do that. Excuse me, my voice is crackling here a little bit after 45 minutes of speaking. Let's see. Excuse me, I'm just reading this question. Ute Worley, and I believe she's from Germany, thank you for being here today. The question is, the yoke at the back of the jeans usually doesn't cover the whole length of the dart. How do you go about that? Oh, that is a really good question, Judy. Hope I say your front name or your first name correctly. The yolk cuts through that dart tip. Let me just see if I can, you know what, maybe I can do it on this example right here. Let me draw a dart like this. And let's just pretend that this is your waistline right here, and this is the rest of it is pants. And so if your yoke, and this is your center back, let's take the, it's going to go like this direction, usually anyway. I hope this doesn't confuse you, me using a bodice back when it's supposed to be a pair of pants. But the yoke line is cutting through the tip of the dart. So it would go like this, and then of course you'd cut your dart out and close it up, and then you're going to measure the halfway point right there, and that little bit that's left over, you take half of it off at your center back and the other half off at your side seam, and then that just removes it. So you're going to draw down like this into the center back and down like that into your side seam. So those little bits right there are going to remove that excess, okay? Close the rotary cutter, Glenda. Okay, where have I gotten to here? M. Barrett says, can you have just a back yoke and not a front yoke? Of course. That's what I've done in that blue shirt and in my black and white one. The shoulder seam still exists there. Okay, Paula Brown says, I tried to take out the shoulder dart and it comes to a little point. Did yours do that? Did I do something wrong? Do I just straighten the sewing line? Well, part of that little point is the shaping, I think. And I'm not sure, when I try to take the dart out, it comes to a point. It shouldn't come to a point when you're in your flat pattern. The only time that a dart might come to a little pointy bit is when you're sewing it, and if you haven't sewed it perhaps correctly and got a real fine sharp point or pressed it over a tailor's hem, you might get a little bit of a point. But when you're in a flat pattern, it should come out totally smooth if you're letting that dart flow to some other location. So maybe I'm getting your question wrong, Paula, but it should be flat. And Marianne, Kennes, questions, do you have a learning video that can show exactly how to use your personal sloper to ensure a store-bought pattern gives the best fit possible? If so, what's its name? And yes, we absolutely do have a DVD tutorial, a DVD lesson on, it's called Fitting Commercial Patterns. And remember, when you buy the physical version of any DVD, that it comes with the streaming version, and if all you want is the streaming version, you can go in today, tomorrow, or Monday and buy it at 20% off. It's called Fitting Commercial Patterns. I give you 3 different bodice examples, 2 pant examples, and 1 shirt example. So we've got a lot of information on helping you to fit your commercial patterns. Jackie Smiley says, what do you do with the waist dart if creating a center back pleat? And I'm presuming, Jackie, that you're meaning if you're having a center back pleat because you're going into a yoke. The waist dart, you just don't do anything with it. You just leave it hang. It just put a big X through it or erase it. It just doesn't exist anymore. And another question from CD Vax 11 says, is it acceptable to move your bust dart into a front yoke? And yes, it absolutely is. Kathleen Hammond, question, pointer on how to have a yoke line on the back match the same horizontal line on the front yoke line if you bring the front yoke lower. Well, if I'm understanding your question correctly, I would make sure I did some very accurate measuring from the shoulder point down, how far down the yoke is on the back, and make sure that it comes down the same amount on the front. So accurate measuring and putting in matching notches is going to help ensure that. If you are working with a plaid fabric, you could draw your yoke line and then cut on a specific dominant color of the plaid and do that on both the front and the back as well. So it depends on the fabric you're working with. And Aisha Regal asks, will a yoke work on a princess seam blouse? Well, yes, it will. You could, I suppose, make the princess seam and then cut the yoke, and then you could have the, I'll back up and say it depends what you want the look to be like. So if you want a yoke as well as the seam going, the princess seam going all the way through the yoke, then you would create the princess seam line first, then you draw your yoke line and separate out and add your matching notches. But if you want a yoke solid in the top of the garment and a princess seam below, then all you would do is cut your yoke piece away and then bring your princess seams up to the base of the yoke line. Elsa B actually did that in her jeans jacket, Design and Sew Along, where she's incorporated both princess seams and the yoke design. Let's see, what else have I got here? I've answered that one. Okay, this is from Ronald Hart, and I know it's the other side of Ronald, the better half of Ronald that's asking this question, but I don't remember what your first name is. How do you figure the color blocking points for a sleeve to the yoke that doesn't hit at the sleeve notches, like the nautical shirt? Well, that's one where I used my stripes, and I made sure that when I cut the bottom part of the fabric, that I put my dominant, in this case it was a navy blue stripe, right on my yoke line, so that the same thing would happen in the back, and it would have a visual effect of being on the same color. So again, it depends on the fabric you're using and how much color it's got and things like that. I think I am down to the end of the questions here, and in my usual fashion, I've gone over my hour allotment. I have to say to all of you, thank you so much for participating in this chat called When is a Yolk Not Related to an Egg? And so now you know a YOKE is on our garments, and I've shown you lots of different positions and answered your questions. So thank you so much for participating. And one thing that I'm going to encourage you to do right now is to stay for just 7 minutes more and watch the video on notches. It's a relatively new video we put out. Some of you may have seen it already, and I do talk about yokes, but I also talk about other functionality of notches. So it's only 7 minutes long. Please stay and watch it. And again, just a reminder for you, mark your calendars, February 5th and 19th for our anniversary chats coming up in the month of February. Thank you all so much for participating today. I love it when you all show up. Have a wonderful remainder of January, and I will see you on February the 5th. Notches, how do you make them, and what are they for? Hi everyone, I'm Glenda with SureFit Designs, and lots of you already know me as Glenda the Good Stitch. I get this question from my customers, and they'll say, Glenda, you don't use very many notches, and I don't know where to put them on my pattern. So let me show you. Notches are for the benefit of helping you to sew together one piece to the other where they match. Let's take a look at this sleeve pattern. This sleeve pattern has a notch right at the top of the cap. That means that that's going to sew when you put it all together and line up right on your shoulder seam, okay? Now, what about the notches in the armhole? Well, the SureFit Designs patterns do have notches. If we take a look at the back bodice here, you're going to see a double notch right there. And on the bodice front, we have a single notch. But then you wonder about placement. Well, a while back, I did some research on how to actually establish where the notch goes in the armhole. And it was a very complicated mathematical formula, not worth the effort. And what it all boiled down to was you basically take your armhole and divide it into thirds, a third, a third, and a third. So I thought, well, why don't we just do that visually? And I look at the armhole and I go, that's about a third, there's another third, and there is another third right there. So basically what I'm going to say is measure your armhole, divide it in 3, and bring a notch from the underarm up and make that a single notch because we're on the front of the pattern. Now, then you have to say, well, I need that same consistent notch on the front of the sleeve pattern, so let's just measure that. And that's approximately 2 inches. So I'll go over to the sleeve and I will measure up 2 inches and I will make a notch, just like that. What about the back of the pattern? Well, as I pointed out, we do have double notches there, and you're going to use a similar formula of a third, and a third. And let's say that's 2.5 inches up on the back armhole. So then we're going to come over to the sleeve pattern. I'm going to measure up 2.5 by standing the tape measure on edge. You can see what I'm doing there to measure a curve. I'll mark it at 2.5, and then I will make a double notch like that. So that's how easy it is to put the notches onto a sleeve pattern and onto your armhole patterns. Or let me say it this way, onto the armhole of your pattern. Now, what about if you want to join a long seam together, like the side of a pair of pants or maybe a long maxi dress, and you'd like to make sure that those seam lines line up? Well, again, take your pattern seam line that you've drawn, and then take a dominant place like the waist point, and then measure down maybe 8 inches on the side seam, and then make a notch on that skirt pattern. And if that's the front, do exactly the same thing with the pattern on the back. From the waistline, measure down, make a notch at 8 inches. That's how simple it is to make notches. But now let me talk about circumstances where I absolutely need to have a notch. No matter how long I've sewn, when I'm joining specific pieces to another piece, particularly when they're at an angle, that's when I need notches. So let's take a look at this top I have on the mannequin. There is a diagonal yoke right there and there. I've also done a diagonal line right here where I took the stripes in and I wanted my chevron or my stripes to chevron absolutely perfectly. So I needed to have notches there. And if we take a look at this sleeve, the black on the top of the sleeve starts right back up at the underarm, and then it rolls around the sleeve and comes out down near my forearm. Well, once I had drawn that design line on the sleeve pattern, before I cut it apart, I made sure that I put matching notches on it, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Let's take a look at the garment I have on this mannequin. Same thing. I've got a diagonal top to the bodice, and I've got a diagonal portion to the bottom of the top. And so I made my design lines, drew those on the pattern, then I put on X's for matching notches before I cut the pattern apart. So let's take a look at that on the bodice now. I'm going to put a yoke line on the top of this bodice, and a yoke can be parallel, of course, to the shoulder line, or it could be at a slight angle like I've done on the sample over here. So I'm just going to put a design line going like this. Now I am going to cut a part on that line, but I need to make sure I can sew it together perfectly. So before I cut it apart, I'm going to make X's, and they will be my matching notches. Then what I'll do, once I've made my X's, is cut it apart. Then I'll take a strip of tracing vellum. I will lay that underneath, tape it in place. Then I'll add my seam allowances, and then I will extend the matching notch out. Very similar that I did on the sleeve pattern here. So that is how easy it is to put matching notches on your pattern, and now you know why you need them. It's to help you join your pieces together. And I would also like to invite all of you to join our SureFit Designs community if you haven't already. Please go to surefitdesigns.com. When you do, there will be a pop-up. Put in your name, your email address, and your country. Hit submit, and that'll take you directly to the subscriptions gift page where there are 4 free gifts to get you started. And I'm sure a lot of you are in YouTube watching this video. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You know we have over 350 videos on fitting, designing, and sewing, all for your benefit so that you end up with the best fitting pattern possible. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.